Hi, I'm AJ Wilcox. I run an ad agency called B2Linked.com, and we are 100% dedicated to LinkedIn ads. I have a client who is in the healthcare space where the deal sizes are very, very large. And so they don't get very many leads. They also don't have a very large budget, but every lead they get is worth a ton. So we had been running a lot of different strategies over the last 2 years, but in the last quarter, we tried a new strategy that is using LinkedIn's newest ad format called LinkedIn Thought Leader Ads. These are incredible. The Thought Leader ads are performing like 5 to 10 times higher than any other ad that we've run on LinkedIn, and the costs are about a fifth to even less per click. So we tried these out. They've had an incredible impact on the client's pipeline. I don't know how to quantify how much any one lead is worth, but to give you an idea, in the past, we've only generated 1 to 2 leads per quarter, and it usually is like they're ecstatic for this. Using the Thought Leader ads with the whole strategy that we're talking about on this episode, we ended up getting 18 attributable leads in 1 quarter from this. I don't know what the impact is going to be, but I'm going to say it's probably in the tens of millions of dollars. The client is absolutely thrilled. So how long did it take to implement? There was definitely a ramp up period where the first couple weeks of running these ads, we didn't see any leads come in. But after that, it really started to ramp up. We saw 2 leads come in that first month, 2 leads the following, and then all the rest of these 18 came in just last month. So we can tell what we're doing is absolutely working. What Thought Leader ads do on LinkedIn is they allow you to boost or sponsor a post that is from an individual, not from a company. And we as humans, we are so much more engaged by content that comes from people. And so the strategy here was taking these internal thought leaders, giving them something to say, and then boosting their message to our ideal target audiences until they are ready to actually inquire. We take them from cold and warm them up. It took us 5 people, 3 from my team and 2 on the client side, to actually implement this. In all, this whole strategy cost less than $15,000 for the whole quarter to implement, and the pipeline generated way eclipses that. The client is absolutely thrilled. What it took was obviously us knowing like what we want to say, who we want to show it to, but that's just part of the LinkedIn Ads platform. We also put together some video content, and that's obviously a little bit more work, but anyone can record just on their phone and get the same level of content. We don't recommend trying to go to a studio and pay tens of thousands of dollars to have this kind of video created. It actually works better on LinkedIn when you can tell like this is grassroots coming from this person, and it causes you to make a personal connection with them that you couldn't make in any other way.
If that resonates with you, listen along. Also, check out our other episodes. You're listening to TLDR, the B2B SaaS growth podcast brought to you by Spear Growth. The goal of the podcast is to enable you, our listeners, to generate an additional $100,000 in cumulative pipeline by May 2024. To do this, we bring people who have made a real impact in their companies. They cut through the fluff and dive deep into one tactic or strategy of theirs. I'm your host Ishan. Let's generate pipeline.
Hey AJ, thank you so much for doing this. Just for context, if anyone hasn't heard or doesn't know who AJ is, you're probably not running LinkedIn ads or haven't really read up enough about how to run LinkedIn ads for B2B SaaS. I've tried to not run into, since this time I started, every time I go into, okay, how do I do something or the other, or if someone's talking about it, your name comes right back. So you've done a phenomenal job at that. So kudos on that. And your content is great, right? You're always on top. So AJ, like anyone listening, if you want to follow 1 or 2 people to really be on top of what's going on in LinkedIn ads, AJ is definitely on that list.
Hey, thanks so much, Ishan. I'm excited to be here, and I'm so glad that you've come across my content. I really do work really hard to put it out, but of course, you never know who's actually paying attention.
I've actually sent your content to a lot of people who apply to work with us. And if I think that, hey, they didn't really make the cut, I just send them a couple of different courses Yours is one of them. I say, hey, just go watch this stuff and then apply again later, right? Like, it's one of those.
That's awesome to hear.
So let's hear from you. So how would you introduce yourself if you had to?
Sure. So I'm AJ Wilcox. I live in the state of Utah in the United States. I fell in love with LinkedIn ads about 14 years ago. And back when they were very, very new, I ended up having a ton of early success on them that I was not expecting. And despite coming into the industry as a search engine optimization and a Google ads guy, I just fell in love with LinkedIn ads. They became my sole focus. And almost 10 years ago, as of the time of recording, I jumped off to go start B2Linked.com. And we're an ad agency that LinkedIn ads is all we do. I have the LinkedIn Ads Show podcast that we're on like episode 140 something. I've spent over $150 million on the platform. And I love sharing everything I know about LinkedIn ads because it's such a cool platform.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way I describe LinkedIn ads to most people is it's the sexy part of of B2B ads, right? Because with Google ads, you have to, it's very data driven. It's very sure, like it's not fun, right? LinkedIn ads, you can really have fun with. You can, it does what you want it to do. You know, it's a lot more freeing and fun, and you feel like you're doing something, you know, like you feel brilliant.
Yes, I feel the same way, but everyone else calls it the boring platform. So I go, maybe I'm weird, but I do. I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, perfect. So just very quickly diving into the exact topic, like, can you just walk us through the results that you got, and then let's get into the nitty-gritties of it. Yeah.
Yes. So as of last year, so this was about mid 2003, LinkedIn launched a new kind of ad format that they call thought leader ads. And it's different than any other kind of advertising we've been able to do, because rather than promoting a post from your company, you're now promoting a post from an individual. And we know that you probably pay 10 times more attention to individuals on LinkedIn than companies.
Yeah.
So we knew that performance was going to be better. But long story short, in testing this, the thought leader ads, they tend to get engagement rates that are 5 to 10 times higher than that of companies. And this happens with every ad platform. The higher your engagement goes, the less that the platform needs to charge you in order to still show your ads and make it worth their while. And so we're seeing costs in the maybe 10 to 20% of the other types of ad formats that you can use on LinkedIn. Yeah. So we're talking about cutting your costs in a fifth to, quintuple or higher your actual engagements. They are super, super powerful.
Yeah. Let's, before we get into the specifics of all of those things, right? So just let's deep dive into costs, because the way I see it, there are two cost savings. One is the actual lower CPMs, and the second is if you have a higher engagement rate, that's a second order cost saving. For a lot of other ad platforms, let's say like Google Ads, you wouldn't really, like CTRs don't matter nearly as much on Google Ads as engagement rates, which is the equivalent in LinkedIn, matter on a social platform like LinkedIn. Can you explain what that is? Because I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you advertise on LinkedIn, the average cost per click is somewhere, if this is in North America, elsewhere the costs are a lot lower, but this is where it's most competitive. You're going to pay on average $10 to $16 per click, which certainly seems a lot if you're used to Meta, maybe even Google. And that's at the normal, everyday engagement rates, click-through rates that you might be getting. When you are able to get click-through rates that are higher than average, let's say 2 to 3 times higher, all of a sudden your costs per click drop significantly. We go from $10 to $16 a click down to like 5 or 6 really quickly, just by having high performing ads that get better click-through rates. So it is so much better to get high click-through rates on LinkedIn than it is on Google, for instance.
Perfect. So just carrying this thread, right? So can you explain the funnel? What happens? Like, let's say in this particular scenario, when you tested thought leadership ads, what did the funnel look like?
Yeah, so for this particular client, each lead to them is worth a lot of money, and they don't get very many. They also don't have a huge budget, but even still, like anytime that they generate 1 or 2 leads, it's a big deal. We've been averaging 1 to 2 leads per quarter for the last 2 years of working together, and they are just happy with that. Like they're ecstatic that's fine, because when one of these deals closes, and this is in the healthcare space, so you can imagine like healthcare SaaS, big deal sizes. When one closes, it's worth multiple millions of dollars, maybe even in the tens of millions to them.
Yeah.
So that was our background. Is like we have a funnel where we try to grab people's attention and then nurture them and then retargeting them to stay top of mind until they're ready to talk to us. It's a 3-step funnel, so we want to have at least 2 important touches with a customer or with the potential customer before we ever ask them to contact us. So that's the start of this funnel. It's not what I would consider very. It's not what I would consider super sophisticated or anything like that. But it works really well for them.
Oh yes, same with us. Right? Like I haven't seen the super complicated funnels work really well on LinkedIn. Like the same funnel, the funnel that we use at Spear Growth, are a 3-step funnel, works great, right? You just use a bunch of data, send to the sales team, get a lot of, and don't try and sell, just open chat threads. That's how we look at it. So when in your case, when you say, hey, like engage folks, what does that mean? And when you say nurture, can you get very specific about what does those words mean? What are the specific metrics? All of that stuff. Is it like a content download? Is it a landing page? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, for this particular client, they know that it's because it's such a big deal when someone fills out a form. They try to nurture that contact as many times as possible with just free, helpful information before they ever ask for a contact form. In fact, we actually haven't had to ask for a contact form in their ads now for like 6 months or more, just because like if you do a good enough job of nurturing those folks with things that they are interested in, then they're naturally going to come to you. So the very first stage that we like giving them something to interact with that is maybe a free article, always something ungated. And then as a follow-up to them, occasionally clients will want something that's gated. So you have them like, here's a free guide or a cheat sheet or a checklist in exchange for an email. This client doesn't do that. They're doing the long, slow play because they realize that each lead they want to give the very best experience to. And so in this case, it's helpful free content for the first 2 touches before they ever see something that asks for an email address.
So how big is their TAM of this client, right? Because if there aren't as many, like given what you've described, right, there couldn't be too many companies that you could target, right? So how, like, can you walk us through, like, okay, stage 1, let's say people, it's article 1, right? And then do you build a retargeting audience of people who've clicked on that? Or you just say, okay, like 1 month I've run this, now 2nd month I'm going to change all the messaging and run the second thing. Like how do you manage that with the context of audience sizes?
Yeah, so what we start with is a total addressable market of somewhere around 40,000. We split them into 2 different markets.
This is 40,000 companies, people, what's...
There's a total addressable market of 40,000 people total. And so we split them into 2 audiences, each one with about 20,000. So we are talking about very small audiences in the way that LinkedIn would categorize them. We try our very best to give them ads that provide value, send them to articles with good thought leadership, good information that they're going to find helpful at work.
I'll keep interrupting you, sorry, just so that I have complete clarity. So when you say 20,000 people, how many, 40,000 people, how many companies are there? Just so I can figure out how many people from the same company are you targeting essentially in this case?
Roughly. It's not an account-based marketing play, so it's not only a specific list of companies.
Got it. Yeah.
So we are using LinkedIn's data. So there are we are using LinkedIn's data to try to
interesting.
find many more of these companies than just we have on a list. So that might be across thousands of companies. Some might be
Okay.
very large with 20 or 30 people in each one that we're going to show ads to, but others there might be one or two in that whole audience size.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you so much for that context. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so interesting, because this is in healthcare and it's kind of a niche in healthcare, it's actually really hard to get people's attention about it because it's not a sexy topic. It's not something that people go out of their way to go and seek out. So the average click-through rate on LinkedIn is somewhere around 0.4%. So a little bit less than half of 1%.
Yeah.
We actually struggle, and we have struggled for the last 2 years, no matter what ads we put together, no matter what content, we struggle to get higher than about 0.3, 0.35%. And I think it just comes down to the subject matter. People aren't excited to seek it out, which is part of what made this whole strategy that we're covering so exciting, because we ended up getting click-through rates in the 6 to 8% range, which we'll get into.
Yep. Awesome. So I cut you off there. So in the funnel, right? So there's let's say 5 people on average in a company, 40,000 people, let's say 4 for easy math, 10,000 companies. You're running free articles. So you run one article at a time. Are there 4s? What does the first stage look like? And then how does someone get to stage 2?
Yes, great question. So we try at any given time somewhere between 3 and 5 different ad concepts to the same audience. And
do these ads lead to the same article or different articles?
different articles.
Okay.
Originally, this has been 2 years ago, we're really big on A/B testing. So we would always do 2 different ads pointing to the same article, and then another 2 ads pointing to the same article. And then we're testing articles against each other. We're testing different ad copy. But there was so little variation because of the low engagement rates that we eventually said, okay, we're not even going to worry about A/B testing. We're just going to give them as many different articles and helpful resources as possible, try to explain them in the best way so that we have 3 to 5 ads at any given time running in the campaign. And our retargeting happens when they engage with any of those ads. So it doesn't matter which one they engage with. If they click through enough to actually read the article or the helpful content, then we graduate them down to our retargeting audience, where we'll show them, oftentimes it's video ads or something that's a little bit more engaging.
Got it. So you create a retargeting audience, and then that's the second stage. Interesting.
Correct.
And then the first, so are all the ads thought leadership ads, or are a few thought leadership, and then the retargeting ads are just normal image-based ads? What does that look like?
Yeah, so before we were running basically just single image ads, maybe a little bit of video if the client had it, and that was the entirety of what we ran. When we started these thought leader ads, we said let's take a little bit of budget. Let's take an eighth of the budget over to test as thought leader ads and see how they do. And they performed so well, we eventually started taking more and more budget from the other efforts to where now they are just maybe $1,000 a month total for those efforts, and all the rest of their budget has now gone to thought leader ads because we can see they are working.
Yeah, perfect. So in this scenario, I think I understand the funnel. When you say engagement, since they're thought leadership ads, what specific you cannot really divide it. Hey, that this person has clicked on the link or read the article versus this person has, you could create a visitor-based retargeting audience to do that. Or you could just say, okay, they just read the post itself, like the LinkedIn post. Do you care, or do you say, you know what, anyone who's read the post, I'm good enough to send them on to the next stage?
Yeah, I wish I had a little bit more control here, because with LinkedIn, we can say if they engage at all with one of these thought leader ads, that's any kind of engagement. That could be clicking on a link we give them. It could be liking or commenting or visiting the person's profile. All of those count as a click. And so LinkedIn, because when you see this ad, you are logged in, so they know exactly who you are, and they keep track of what you do in the background so advertisers can then use that data for targeting. I wish I could get a little more specific and say I only want to retarget you if you ended up clicking on the link that we gave you, but LinkedIn calls every click on a thought leader ad a click, and so we can't do that. What we can do, though, is once they get to the landing page, we could create a website retargeting audience there, but that relies 100% on cookies. And we know that cookies, like the internet has waged war against cookies. So I know if I build that audience, it's going to be, I don't know what the percentage might be, but we might only retain 20, 30, 40% of them. But if I do it through LinkedIn, I know I have 100% match rate with my retargeting.
Yeah.
So I choose to do it there.
Yeah. I think we ran an experiment where we tried to, the exact same thing that you tried, right? I tried to look at, okay, you know what, let's see who clicked the link versus who just quote unquote engaged on LinkedIn, because, you know, like if the same person who's telling you what the numbers are is the person I'm paying, not the best way to do it. So I try to sort of say, okay, who's coming to the website and then build an audience. There were just too many variables to control to be able to just get good data to say, okay, you know, this is how many people click in an average scenario. But yeah, like that's sad. I was hoping you would have an answer.
I wish I did. It's one of those things where I think later on we'll be able to, I hope this is in LinkedIn's roadmap, we'll be able to run thought leader ads as the website visits objective. And that way the definition of a click changes and it's only a click to the landing page that you get charged for. And then that would mean we can create a retargeting audience only of those people who clicked. Yeah. That's what I would prefer, but we can't do that not yet.
Perfect. Okay, so let's get into the number bit, right? So let's say, can you just reiterate the difference in costs? Because obviously, like we cannot really, it's fair to say, right? The difference in net difference you saw in cost or the increase in volume that you saw is the increase in leads you could expect from this, right? That's a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, if you say all else held equal, all we do is reduce the cost per click, and that should mean that we could get that many more visits, that many more opportunities for a conversion. And I don't know if it worked out exactly that way here, especially because when we run these website visits campaigns, we are only paying when someone clicks on the link and has an opportunity to convert. But with thought leader ads, it's a different definition for click so far. But we have seen incredible results. So I'll kind of walk you through what this looked like. So average cost per click on LinkedIn from a company ad is $10 to $16. We have seen anywhere between about 50 cents to $2 per click using thought leader ads.
Awesome.
I mentioned the click-through rates before. We're lucky if we get higher than the benchmark of like 0.4%. These are anywhere between about 2% on the low end to we've seen 8% on the high end, and they're filling retargeting audiences great. And we watch all the performance of the traffic when they get to the landing page, and we see they are actually sticking around longer on the site. They are more engaged on the page. It is a better quality traffic for sure.
I haven't tested or A/B tested between the quality of traffic between the two, so this is really interesting to me. Like, is that something you're not in just this case? Have you seen this pattern across other ad campaigns as well, or is it more of in this case it was better quality?
This happens pretty much all the way across LinkedIn.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
What we like to do is inside of GA4, I actually have a whole podcast episode about how to set this up. We set an event to fire anytime someone makes it to 30 seconds, anytime they make it to 1 minute, and anytime they make it to 3 minutes. And then we do the same thing if they make it down to 50% scrolling down the page, 70%, and 90%. And so that way, when we run reports, like LinkedIn says that it sent 100 clicks. Okay, what does that actually mean to our website? LinkedIn might say, LinkedIn might say we sent 100 clicks. Analytics might say we see 80. And then we look at each kind of ad type, like, okay, we lost 20% in between the click and what analytics recognizes. What does that mean for what percentage of that traffic stays engaged and hits some of the other events that we've outlined. And yeah, we see thought leader ads tend to stick around longer. Normal LinkedIn traffic doesn't quite stick around as long. And then we've seen LinkedIn has something called the LinkedIn Audience Network, where the traffic is a lot cheaper. And so we are running quite a bit of that for this client. But those clicks, they usually have less than a 1 second average. So they're not very engaged clicks at all.
And you still run it? That's a different episode altogether. Let's not get into it right now. That's a different episode. We'll do that. Perfect. Okay. I think you're the first person I've spoken to who said that, I run LinkedIn Audience Network. Everyone else I've spoken to, including myself, we're all like, hey, let's not do it. And so that's another conversation.
Of the 30 to 50 accounts that I manage at any given time, I only have 2 right now that are running the LinkedIn Audience Network, and it's well thought out. Like we are running them despite my recommendation saying it's usually not very good traffic, but like through looking at the data, we've actually decided like, hey, this actually is worth the cost. So yeah, we could do a whole other episode on that too.
Oh yeah, that's the next episode for sure. Or one episode for sure. Perfect. Okay, so just getting into the nitty-gritties of actually implementing this, right? So let's look at like who were all the people involved? What did the team look like? And this, please also get into the nitty-gritties of if there's someone project managing it, or if there's how do you get the whoever who posted the actual content, how much work did they have to do, how did you write in their voice? So can you just walk us through the project into that extent?
Yeah, for sure. So in this case, we had 5 total people involved. We had me, who's leading the ad strategy. We have one of the members on my team who's my ads manager, who is actually doing the implementation. We have our point of contact with the client, and he found an internal thought leader that he wanted to use. So we involved the thought leader. We also, for some of the posts, and actually what appear to be the most successful posts, they were video thought leader ads. So this was, they wrote something and then had a video of them talking about the topic. And so we had another member of my team who's our video producer, video coach. And he was there to come up with questions to ask the thought leader, record him and her. They have multiple thought leaders. Record them, ask those questions, then do the editing and production. So all in, we're probably 6 months into this, because it took about 2 months of discussing the strategy before the client said, okay, I think we're ready to actually pull these resources in. Then there was probably another couple months of aligning with the thought leaders. What do you want to talk about? What are the things that you could share with our target audience that no one else knows? Let's get you, let's record you, come up with the right questions, do the editing, do the production, and then get this back to you so that you can actually do the post. So I don't actually write any of the content for the thought leaders. I feel like that would be a problem, because they know their audience, they know their subject matter way better than I do. And so I can coach them and say, put these kinds of things in your post, but more often than not, I say, you post it, and then I will go and give you some suggestions afterwards on editing it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Awesome. And then what about, I think this is a question whenever we've tried this, right? So there's always a question, what kind of camera, what kind of lighting, what kind of mics, what did that look like? Did they buy it? Did you send, what did that process look like?
Yeah, we originally talked to these thought leaders and said, hey, use your webcams at home. But when we did some tests, we went, it doesn't look very good. The client considered buying some lighting setup, like a ring light and good audio and a decent camera, and sending it out to their thought leaders who didn't live locally. But eventually what they decided on, they have a studio, or at least some better equipment in their office. And once per quarter or twice per year, all of their internal folks come to meet at the company. So we just aligned the recording to happen when they had better equipment.
And just like between us, no one is hearing this conversation. Was this a decision because the client pushed for it, or did you push for it? Like how much? Like for example, what have you seen something that, hey, this matters more? Like the video quality matters a lot. In which scenarios does it matter? Because I've seen in some industries it matters a lot, and in some industries it doesn't. Right? So
yeah. With video thought leader ads specifically, so I have a different answer for any other kind of video.
Yeah.
Any other kind of video you do, audio matters more than video. You don't want your audio to be crackly and far away and distracting. But when you have video ads on LinkedIn, 80% or more are not watching with the sound on. And so if you realize that if they're not watching with the sound, your subtitles matter more than the audio. And then it's a good idea to like, let's make sure that the lighting at least looks presentable, that the video looks presentable.
Nice. That's actually a very interesting insight. Okay, perfect. So we figured how did you record it, how did you write the content, how long it took to do all of this, and then I think that might become of almost as a shock to most people. If you think you can do it in a week, you might. I hope you can, but then it's unlikely. But yeah, like perfect. I've heard all, like, you know, I'm sure you've also like, yeah, let's just record it tomorrow and send it out, right? Like,
yeah. And if you've already done this once, it's so much faster. Like the first time we did this, it took 4 months of preparation, but the next time we do it, it's going to be a week because we already have the process. We already have like everyone's experience doing it. The equipment already exists. It's going to go a lot faster the second time. So don't let any of this put you off if you're considering. Like, you're going to put some work in, but don't worry. It's going to be worth it, and it's going to significantly speed up in the future.
100%. Perfect. So, like, that's done. We understand your team as well. Now, let's get... Were there any other people involved at all?
Our point of contact brings his boss and a data analyst on our weekly calls. Yeah. So they were involved just to know what's going on, but actual implementation, they gave very, very little actual feedback. So I would say it's the 5 of us were probably the main ones.
Got it. And then from a cost perspective, apart from the 2 costs, right, like the ad spends themselves and then the agency fees, what other expenses were involved here?
It was only about $1,500 for video production. We have a service that we offer our clients with the video coach and the editing that's very, very inexpensive. That package got them 4 videos to start out with. And so we had 4 separate videos from 2 different thought leaders to be able to test against and have the content for. So it was very, very inexpensive because they already had good lighting and a good mic and a good camera at their office.
Makes sense. Perfect. And then just, is there anything that I should have asked about this that I didn't or I missed asking?
Oh, one thing I'd love to talk you through is kind of what the leads look like. So I mentioned that they usually only have about 2 leads per quarter, and they're very okay with that because these leads are worth so much, and they do have a high close rate. Since we implemented this, it was kind of a slow burn. For about the first 2 weeks, we didn't see anything, but in the right after that, we saw 5 leads in pretty close succession, like all happening in the last 2 weeks of the month. And we were really surprised, like, how in the world did this happen? Thought leader ads aren't as trackable as the other kinds of ads. So we also don't have the direct attribution telling us this was the exact ad that caused this. We just saw a whole bunch of unattributable leads come in really close. And then the second month of the quarter, it did okay, but we also were switching ads in and out. Yeah. And then finally in the last month of the quarter, we saw, I think it was something like 8 come in really quick succession. Wow. So all of that to say, we usually only get 2 leads per quarter. Last quarter, we ended up with 16 that were attributed from 18 total. And we looked at that and went, wow, this is great. I don't know how to calculate what the pipeline impact would be, but it's probably in the tens of millions if I had to guess.
Yeah. That's amazing, right? I'm still thinking because I think when my favorite thought leadership ad test, when all of this was new, it just came out before you could run, like you could even get people from other companies to do it. You had to hack into saying that, hey, put my company in your in your experience for a while. When all of that was happening, obviously we also had to experiment with all of this stuff. My favorite experiment, personal favorite, was an experiment we ran for ourselves, because there's no guardrails with our own agency, right? You can do whatever you want. So what we did was we made memes in video format, ran those as thought leadership ads, and one of them did like amazingly well. Very similar results to what you saw. It just wasn't consistent, right? It would like work, and just as you said, right, like some months it would just go down, then it would come back again. It was very interesting, but it was very evergreen also. Like weirdly, like I thought we'll burn through the audience within a couple of months. That didn't happen. It actually, I think, ran very well for 6 to 8 months. In your case, like how long? Because it's a lot of work to make a video ad, and a lot of investment, and stakeholders need to do a lot of work, and there's a lot of insecurities to manage. So with all of that, like how long do these ads usually, or one set of ads, before you have to replace them, how long does it take?
Well, Ishan, I thought just like you did, like once someone has seen this ad before, they're probably the next time they see it, they will probably interact with it less, and we should see our interaction rates go down, our costs go up, and eventually we know to sub this out. Across several clients right now, when we've been running the same thought leader ads now, it usually takes about 2 months before we see one of the ads start to decline.
Yes.
And if we weren't constantly putting new ads in to essentially compete with it, to try new things, it's possible we wouldn't see nearly the same decline that we see with company ads. So these actually, they last longer, even though I would say as a marketer, plan on refreshing them, like giving new content, once a month if you can. They will probably live for 2 months without too much intervention being needed.
Yeah. Perfect. I think this was a great episode. I don't think I've had a record discussion where I went in this much depth into thought leadership ads. This was a great conversation, AJ. Who better to have this conversation with than you? Thank you so much for doing this.
Awesome. Anytime, Ishan. Thanks so much for having me on.
Just one quick, if you could give an elevator pitch to everyone watching this, what would that be?
An elevator pitch for the episode, or elevator pitch
for
to
the agency, for your agency?
For the agency? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're B2Linked.com. We manage only LinkedIn ads. We are absolute experts at that, official LinkedIn partners and all that for now almost 10 years. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, AJ Wilcox, it's really easy to find me. And if you want to connect with me, just make sure you customize the request and say you heard me on Ishan's show, and I'll know to accept it. Otherwise, find us at B2Linked.com or on the LinkedIn Ads Show podcast.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, AJ, again. Hopefully we record a second episode soon.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and if you want to, we could try to hurry and jam out a second episode, or we could just reschedule and do a second one later.
Thank you for listening to the TLDR podcast. In case you're wondering, Spear Growth is a marketing agency. We help B2B SaaS companies like yourself with ads and SEO. Check out our website at speargrowth.com. That is SPEARGROWTH.com. Just like this, every episode starts with a 1-minute summary of what we discuss. Pick the next episode to listen to based on what you can implement right away. And after you implement any of these tactics and see an impact, we'd appreciate you drop us a note on podcast@speargrowth.com.